Hello and welcome to Breath Weapon X. We're here for another Game Pass review. So before we get going, if you can like and subscribe and hit the alert, that way you won't miss this video, you won't miss any video, well you won't miss this one certainly, but you won't miss any of the others that come out because our content is so good and I'm sure you want to eat it up with your eyes and your ears. Lovely. So today we are playing Nobody Saves the World. This is an RPG roguelike. So for those of you who aren't familiar with what a roguelike is, essentially what you do is you go into a dungeon and the levels are procedurally generated, which means that they are randomized. So every time you go into a dungeon, you will face a brand new layout. You can't learn from it. You can't, well, you can, you learn from the characters, but what happens in each room is going to be different every time you play the game. And that's exactly what happens in this one. You go around different dungeons, you find different things, and every time I replayed a dungeon just to find this out because it's still got a lot of narrative elements, which we'll go into a little bit later. But the idea is you go into these dungeons and they are different every time you go into them. And like I say, I double check that, and that is the case here as well. And the RPG element, so basically it has got a narrative that runs through it. You are on a quest to find the powerful Nostramagmus who has completely disappeared, and the arcane gem, which is in pieces currently, and is needed because it's powerful and it will banish evil. So the RPG elements are from this story. You've got the story, and what will happen is you will level up. And what makes this game really unique are the transformations. As you can see right now, I've just turned into an archer. I was a rat before. There are all sorts of different transformations that you do in this game, which will impact how you play and how things around you are going to be impacted. So, which is something we're going to go into a little bit later. So first of all, what I want to say is really fantastic about this game is it has really good writing, and the humour is certainly something I'm a big fan of. It's very tongue-in-cheek, so I really don't, without wanting to give it out too many spoilers, the idea is, for instance, one of the guys you meet at the start, he's really unbearable and a real pain, and you've got like a dialogue tree, and both options are like no. One of them's like no, and no. One of them is like no, you're a jerk. So that's kind of the humour. It's very tongue-in-cheek. It's like this mummy character can only go. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. It's a lot of fun, and also whilst we're on kind of talking about the fun writing, I think something really to mention is I think it's got a really lovely art style. You know, it really shows that a game doesn't have to have fantastic graphics, but it needs to have an art style. It needs to have something that distinguishes it from the rest of the crowd. And in my opinion, Nobody Saves the World really has this, especially during the transformations. The wand comes up, there's a big puff of smoke. It looks good. It looks good, and is it simple as that? So, as I was saying, the unique spin is that you transform into these different creatures and you have to unlock each transformation. Now, I've played about 3 hours of this game, and I'm going to try and keep my reviews relatively consistent, apart from obviously when it's a game I've played lots of. But having played about 3 hours of this game, what I noticed, so your first transformation is you become a rat, so you use your rat skills to help you get out of this bind you're in. Then there's like an archer or a rogue, depending on what you call them, and this soldier dude. And then to where we are, I also grinded a little bit, and I'm now a horse and a slug, and then finally a mermaid. And, you know, going back to the humour in this game, you know, there's a quest, you get to fall in love. And as soon as you unlock the ability to turn into a horse, you can like go up to this horse and you fall in love with this horse. So lots of little things like that where the humour is, you know, it's not laugh out loud funny, but it's sensible chuckles level of funny, which is kind of what you want from a game. There's really clever use of the different creatures. So for instance, when you're a rat or the slug, you can go through smaller passages. You've got different powers, and different transformations have different amounts of health and mana. So the soldier dude has a really high mana bar, has really high health bar. Sorry, the rogue has a smaller health bar. The rat has a different health bar but more mana, and etc. etc. And this is sort of how the game sort of plays out is that at different times you'll have to do different things. Now, how experience works in this is that if you look at the moment, you can see there's a bar on the left of the screen. Those are my quests. I need to complete these little quests, and they'll usually be like eat X amount of things, do Y amount of things, and you get your EXP, and that's how you upgrade your character to then unlock more characters, as well as unlocking extra abilities and things like that. So you start off with a passive and a basic ability, and then eventually you get an active ability. So for the rat, it's consume. So you go from kind of being able to run around biting things to being able to like eat things, which then gives you health. Oh, I wonder if I got that little mana fairy. I have to go back and look. Which then gives you health, which is obviously really useful. The slugs are really cool. I really like the slug. You go around and you leave like a trail of slime, and then it slows anything that touches that trail. So you can then, like, you've kind of got like a machine gun crying power. It's a bit weird, but yeah, you then go and do that and kill a load of things. Basically, it's really cool. So yeah, that's kind of it. So kind of touching on combat, what's really good, or what's quite cool, is that with the combat you're able to mix and match abilities. So where I've got to in the game now, I'm actually able to go and change my ability. So I can have, for instance, the horse has a special thing where he gets more mana for breaking objects. You can put that onto something else, onto one of your other transformations, and have that. One of the coolest things, and it tells you this, to be fair, because I didn't think of it, to be honest with you, was the rat. So he inflicts poison when he bites, but so does the archer when she uses her basic attack. So you can actually combine the poison from the rat and the archer to kind of have like a super poisonous character. And as these games kind of do, usually it's different types of damage. So for instance, there's dark damage and light damage and piercing damage and things like that. We call it sharp in this. And that's in this too. And there are some enemies that kind of have a shield, essentially is the best way to describe it. A shield that they will put on until you use that kind of damage. So at first you're switching between your transformations, trying to get the right damage on the right enemy. But then, as you kind of find out, around about 2 hours and 40 minutes into the game, from my point of view, you then can actually put the different types of damage on different things. So I could have a piercing ability on my rat, so therefore I could do dark damage, but I could also do sharp damage. Sorry. So I feel like there's a lot of customizability in this game, and there's a lot of ways that you can make it play your own way. So you want a rat to be super strong, you can play the rat. Like, that's what my impression is at this point. There's nothing to stop you just grinding your rat, if that grinding your rat and having a super strong, powerful rat. There's nothing from playing the soldier and making him super strong and super powerful. You can mix and match abilities and do things in a way you want, which I think is really cool. And this game is clearly been based on abilities to be cool. So the archer can shoot multiple things in a row if she charges a shot. She's got this rapid fire ability that's really cool, that you can go like pow, 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 pow. And that is not the sound effects, I promise. So yeah, from a positives point of view, there are lots and lots of positives. To be honest, I actually don't have that many gripes with this game. My biggest issue so far, it is extremely forgiving in the first few hours, which is fair enough. The only time I actually died was once. I don't want to give it away, but there's a character who you talk to who does something and insta kills you, and there's also the other time I died was because I was trying to fulfill a quest, but I essentially you had to not kill this one thing and the thing got killed. So it's very easy to go through, but to be fair, you're learning a lot, so I don't think it's necessarily the worst thing in the world, but maybe a bit more of a challenge early on would be quite fun. The other issue, I think the sound, the music's not kind of very interesting from a sound point of view, especially when you're playing something like the the soldier dude, and you've got your sword out, and you're going swing, 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 because you can just press A and it holds that down. It's just not very interesting, and honestly, when if you want someone to talk to or listen to some other music, go for it, because you don't really need the sound. And I'm not here going, oh, the sound design's great, in my opinion. Obviously, that's very subjective, and you might feel very different about that. But I think the transformations are really good. They're really fun. I really enjoyed having the quests to do and complete. I can see how some people maybe wouldn't, because they definitely do pigeonhole you to an extent. Having these side quests or little quests to do to get your EXP means essentially you have to play the game in a certain way at times in order to progress. So you know, where I said that actually you can play the rat and make the rat really strong, well, eventually you're going to need to grind, kind of, whilst I'm here, talk about these currencies. So you'll see at the occasion at the top, you'll see some magic wands. There you go, some magic wands at the top, and money and level up things. The magic wands are really important because they help you open doors. So they're kind of a progress currency in this game. And in order to get those, you have to complete quests. So sometimes you are going to be railroaded into completing quests that you might not want to or might find boring. So, for instance, there was one I had to do, which was the as the knight, I had to... What do I have to do? I had to get something like... I had to hit enemies in a certain way. And I was like, oh, well, that's not something I can do all the time. So I kind of had to walk around as this knight, being ready to hit enemies in a certain way. And not really being able to. Or once I had to go around as the... I had to go around as a rogue. I had to put a different passive on and go around destroying things to get X and Y. And that can be a little bit... I would say it railroads you into certain decision making, which I think it's short enough that you don't really have a problem with it. And at this point, obviously, we're still learning, so only 3 hours into the game. Yeah, it's pretty reasonable. So I think that's something that, like I say, I personally enjoy, but I get that not everyone would. From an aesthetic point of view, like I say, the design's really good. The dungeons are relatively interesting. There's a lot of self-healing and a lot of mana regeneration that's available quite easily. And especially if you play something like this knight, you're so tanky that actually you don't get hurt by anything. And then as soon as you do, you just switch to the rat and you consume. Or there's a lot of items you find around you that will help you. However, like I say, I'm aware I'm 3 hours in, so that may change quite drastically at some point in the game, and it might suddenly become rather unforgiving. But from where I am right now, the challenge seems quite low, and there haven't really been any difficulty settings. You know, I generally try and play my games on hard, so that's kind of... Oh, there's my arrow volley. That's kind of what I'm after. The characters the enemies you face do have an interesting design. So you've got like these cat mages and these giant torsos that kind of spin around. Even the basic kind of enemies are relatively interesting to look at. So it's got a really good world. And speaking of world, I think you can say that about sort of the rest of the world. When you go outside and you talk to people, there was a guy earlier in this video, you saw him, and he has his bunnies, and he's like, oh, don't worry, if I'm attacked, I'll be fine, because I've got these bunnies to protect me. So the humour's there. There's all sorts of things going on, and people you can talk to, and the world is full of people who are funny and who will say things, and it's an enjoyable world. If you like that tongue-in-cheek humour, it's definitely something worth trying out. Kind of going into the philosophy of these, is this worth your time? Absolutely. This has been a fantastic playthrough. I'm lucky that I've been able to enjoy this game so much. Playing it, it's been a real joy to try. So if you want to leave a comment, please feel free. It would be really cool to get other people's ideas on there. A massive thanks to our Patreons, to Stuart, our Epic Dragon, and KK Simmons, our Minion Dragon. And of course, rolling into what is the rating of this. Also subscribe again if you haven't already. And what is the rating? It's Epic Dragon. Maybe next time I need to leave a bit longer for it. Definitely worth your time. Play this game, spend some time with it. I will definitely be going back to it because it has been a real blast. It's a lot of fun. The mechanics are solid. The sound design, in my opinion, lets it down, but apart from that, a real top class game. An Epic Dragon, one of the better games on Game Pass, and if you love roguelites, then you'll marry this.